While some rookies are climbing up draft boards, some are falling down. Who are the biggest fallers before the NFL draft? You know, if you want to win in Dynasty, you have to stay ahead of the competition. Unless you spend every day grinding through film and stats, that might seem impossible at times. But that's where we come in. Join us on flockfantasy.com/endgame and we'll help you build that championship team that you deserve. We'll guide you through your drafts, both startup and rookie. We'll tell you which trades to take and which to stay away from, and everything else you need to help build a championship squad. Sign up on flockfantasy.com/endgame and get that winning edge. All right, let's get to the bad news. Who's the guy that's falling down your draft board?
It's almost unfair to say he's falling down because I really haven't been high on him at all this rookie season, and nothing has changed for me, and that is Devin Achane. And I just don't get why people are so high on him. I mean, okay, sure, he had the highlight runs at A&M there, but he's 188 pounds. You might think like, well, that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal at the NFL level. There are not a lot of running backs who have been 190 or under and have succeeded. In fact, even being under 200 pounds is a big disadvantage for a running back. And I think one of the players people like to compare him to and say this is who he could eventually be is Darren Sproles. And that is not a good thing. And you might not remember this or might not even be old enough to remember this, but way back when Darren Sproles was in college, he had 815 carries and averaged over 6 yards per carry. He was an absolute workhorse in college. Then what happened? He fell to the 4th round of the NFL draft. He didn't do anything. His career high in carries for a season was 93. He never rushed for more than 603 yards. Why? Because it's hard as a 190-pound running back to run between the tackles at the NFL level where everybody is big and everybody is fast. And a lot of Achane's yardage came on outside runs where he was able to turn the corner and just blow by slower guys. That's not going to be as easy at the NFL level. He also only averaged 3.6 yards after contact, which might sound great by NFL standards, but by college standards, that was one of the worst in this running back class, and he only had a 58% success rate on runs of 3 yards and shorter. He's just a guy who needs to get to the edge and turn the corner, and that's not going to be easy to do at the NFL level. I really think he's going to fall in the draft, and people are going to be surprised. And I think his role when he gets to the NFL is going to be more of a kick returner and a punt returner than a running back. So he's a guy I'm just completely avoiding. 180 pounds, just a massive red flag for me. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I'm not taking that gamble. I'm going to let somebody else do it.
Well, we find out all the time there are a lot of running backs who put up big numbers in college, look great, and that doesn't translate to the NFL because, like you said, it's a lot harder to break off those runs, break tackles, and just to put up big numbers as a running back. You really have to be the best of the best. And even so, you're competing with all these other guys. And so just to carve out enough of a share of that backfield to make an impact, it's hard to do. So I'm staying away from the guys who put up average athleticism scores, who come from these small schools that really don't stand out. And so I have to say, Taijae Spears, you know, some people kind of liked him as a sleeper early on in this pre-draft process. I see no reason to have any faith in thinking that he's going to stand out in the NFL. So as far as size, okay, he's average 5'10", 201. Not a small back per se, but when you're that size, you need to have the speed. And he doesn't. He ran a 4.6 almost. So that's a speed score in the 30th percentile. That's not going to cut it. And this is a guy who, again, playing for Tulane, put up some numbers there. But come on, let's compare that to the NFL. What are the chances that he's going to really stand out? I don't see him being more than like a number 3 running back, maybe for a team, kind of an emergency situation, maybe just a special teamer. I don't see anything that makes me think he's going to be more than a very, very late round pick in the NFL. So of all the running backs I might have some interest in, you got to have some sort of attribute that jumps out. Like I said, at least even with Achane, at least you know he could break off that huge run if he finds space, right? That might happen, it might not. With Spears, I don't see anything special. And then who else are you just a little bit down on compared to the rest of the community?
I'm now a lot lower on Jalen Hyatt, and this was a guy I liked because I felt like he had that speed, that deep threat ability, But it turns out that's all he has. According to his reception perception, he is below average on every single route except the 9 route, which is basically just run straight, the go route, and the route to the flat. He's not average in other routes. He's below average in every other route. That means those are the only 2 routes he's any good at. That is not going to translate at the NFL level to a guy you can count on week in and week out for fantasy value. Sure, he's going to hit on a huge play every now and then. He's going to hit home runs every now and then. But if he doesn't land in a great spot, if he lands with a quarterback who doesn't have a big arm and isn't very accurate, he might not even hit on any of those home runs. And he can't really do anything else. He can't run other routes. He can't separate up and down the route tree. And another thing that really worries me about him, being a bigger, deep threat receiver, his contested catch percentage was 33%. One of the worst in the entire class. I'm really starting to get Ted Ginn vibes here. And if you're old enough to remember Ted Ginn, you know what it was like. Every now and then, he'd catch like a 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown on your bench. The next week you'd start him, he would do nothing. And I really feel like that's what I'm seeing with Jalen Hyatt here. So unless he lands in an absolute home run spot, and even then, I had him going to the Chiefs. Now I don't think he does. But if he does go to the Chiefs, I still don't know if I'm going to buy him because he's a one-trick pony. Just run straight, try to hit on the home runs. And that's just not what you're looking for in fantasy on a week-to-week basis. So I liked him coming into the draft, but after seeing his reception perception profile, I'm dropping him way down my rankings.
And my follower is a guy that I really thought would be the clear-cut number 1 player at his position, and that's Michael Mayer of Notre Dame. Seemed like he was just a lock to be the first tight end off the board. Now it's pretty clear he's not going to be because Dalton Kincaid has passed him by. A lot of these mocks now have him as the number 1 tight end. Mayer might still be a first-round pick, but it is a lot closer than it used to be. And look, I think that it seems as if this tight end class is a lot better than a lot of people expected beforehand, but also maybe Mayer just doesn't stand out as much. Now, he can make those contested catches. He's got pretty solid hands, but athletically, he really isn't a special prospect. I know we don't want to get too wrapped up in all these measurables. I mean, if you go by that and combine numbers, Mike Gesicki should be a Hall of Famer, right? But Mayer just really won't have the speed to be the next Travis Kelce or somebody who makes these big plays down the field. And he doesn't, dominate physically in any way. So he might just wind up being a standard tight end who blocks some, catches some, is good, but not great. And when you have these other tight ends, like I mentioned, Kincaid, Darnell Washington might get drafted over him, Mayer just falls down to being somebody you don't have to have that much interest in.